Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Just for your info, this session will be available in French next week on October 10. Cette session sera disponible en français, le même sujet la semaine prochaine, le 10 octobre. So this session is only going to be run in English. And I have with me Adam Gardner on the tech team and also your regional coordinator for Alberta and BC West. For those who
Hello.
not know myself, I'm Geneviève Pilotto. And as I'm running this session, I'm also admitting people and answering things in the chat. So sometimes there might be some lagging. I apologize for that in advance. Hey, Dom Oshanek, are you around?
I'm here. I made it.
Nice. So Dom is here too. We'll be running the session with us, and we'll just get started. Yep. All right, do you see my screen well? All good?
All good.
Sweet. So the subject tonight, level 3 and 4, expectation, preparation, and development. So we thought this session would be good for some people that are maybe thinking about the process of going towards the level 3 or the level 4 or in the process. So it might help you to answer some of your questions. Some question might, some answers that we're going to be talking about might already be found in the course guides. So we'll touch a little bit on this and we'll take some time to answer your question at the end of the session. So as I mentioned, we have Adam and Dom, who are both experienced evaluators, and they will be giving you some of their pro tips and answers questions if there are any questions. This session will also be presented in French next week. I mentioned it, and please feel free to add questions in the chat at any time during the presentation. We'll make sure that they're answered at the end of this presentation, that nothing is left behind. So level 3 course and exam. So at this level, we're expecting that instructors attend the level 3 course that I've taught for many years. Variety of students, variety of snow school programs, private groups, snow school. And we're also expecting that they have years of riding experience in different conditions and locations. So volume of riding, a great volume of riding. Also, our system of evaluation is based on our snow school system in Canada. So when you teach new students every day, students that you're meeting often on the same morning for private, for example, or for group lesson for the day, and based on the general programs that are offered at these snow schools. So that's how we inspired our scenarios for teaching through the courses. So maybe if you're in the situation where you only have taught your friends and your family, this is not necessarily the type of experience that will help you towards this process. So you might want to think about like getting the great experience in snow schools or club that will allow you to do that. So Dom, do you hear me? Yes. Dom, could you talk to us about the Park 1 course prerequisite before attending the level 3 course?
Yeah. So first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. Yeah. So the Park 1 course was made a prerequisite for the level 3 a few years ago. And the goal there is to ensure that every candidate who comes to the level 3 course has a kind of minimum standard of ability in the park, and as well as some teaching experience, comfort teaching in the park, so that on the level 3 course, we are able to be very adaptable and fluid with our lessons and our riding. So if someone wants to teach a lesson that takes a lap through the park, everyone who's there is able to then benefit from that lesson because we have this kind of minimum standard for the park riding that the person teaching can kind of rely upon. It also, the Park 1 is great because it trains some fundamental movements that we then kind of expand into the whole mountain in the level 3 course. So it helps kind of bridge a little bit of a gap between the level 2 and the level 3 in terms of some of the fundamental movements that we're going to be using.
Yes, awesome. Thanks, Dom. Talking about instructor training, Adam, I'm going to direct this question to you. Could you explain why the instructor training component is an important part of our level 3 certification?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we use it as a standalone kind of project there to start people on the path of training new instructors and also prep them for teaching level 1 courses eventually. But the big one there is it just dives deeper into some of those fundamental kind of practical teaching skills that will help you become a better teacher in general. And I think there's a wise Japanese saying that says, if you truly want to master something, you have to teach it, right? So if you want to become a master teacher, you kind of have to teach teachers in that regard. So although it's geared towards teaching teachers and things like that, it's also just great for general teaching as well, because it allows us to break down those practical teaching skills into very in-depth models and run a full session on each of those to develop our mastery and understanding that stuff.
Nice. Thanks. So do you guys have anything to add on this slide, Dom and Adam? Or we can move to the more like the course content, the course guide. I think we got
all good.
Cool. Just jump in anytime, right? So level 3 exams expectation. Of course, you can find these ones. You can find the writing standard videos on the YouTube channel and on our CASI website as well. For the exams, we're touching on 3 components during the course, the certification, and we're evaluating the 3 components. And the exam now, it's scheduled on a 3 days exams with 3. You can test out each component separately. Teaching, writing, and instructor training. And we're gonna just quickly take a look at our course guide here, the level 3. Can you see the course guide there? Cool. So if you scroll down in your course guide there, you'll see, you'll find a section about the evaluation. So that's where you'll be able to find in details any question you might have about the assessment and the marking system. So if we are looking at the technical writing evaluation, we're looking at 4 mandatory maneuvers, and we're giving candidates 2 opportunities during the exams, the writing exam, 2 opportunities at the minimum to demonstrate these mandatory maneuver, or often we call them tasks. So we have the long turns, the free run, the short turns, and the medium turns, which we cover during the course to prepare you in order or to keep training for the exams. We are marking them with a final mark with below the standard or meet the standard. So this is how it works for the writing. Maybe, Adam, do you want to talk about the teaching evaluation?
Yeah, so the teaching evaluation, it's not so different from a lot of the other courses we run. Like if you look at each of the forms, a lot of the criteria is exactly the same that we're looking for. But then for the level 3, especially, the depth of it becomes a little more important, as well as making it a real lesson catering to the students that are in front of you, whereas kind of level 1 and 2 has become a little bit more, you're teaching down to lower levels, and level 3, you're definitely teaching your peers. And some of the best teachers that I've seen on these courses are the ones that are able to just remove themselves from what I would class as that tunnel vision teaching, where they just start teaching and they forget to just kind of listen to themselves speak and look around and make changes if things aren't going the way they should be going. And I've always said, with every single lesson you teach, there's one common thing you bring to every lesson, and that's yourself. So you basically have to really dig deep into your own teaching style and things that you commonly miss or things that you commonly maybe aren't as smooth as delivering. So maybe if feedback isn't your strength, then you have to be aware of that kind of stuff and kind of work on it a little bit. And it doesn't have to happen every time. There's definitely variety there, but just making sure that you're aware of what you're teaching when you're teaching it. So if the situation isn't going quite to plan, you can quickly manipulate it back to what you wanted to be able to do in the first place, right? So just being adaptable rather than coming up with this formatted lesson on a page and rolling with it, because usually those ones don't go very good because they don't adjust as things happen, right?
Sweet. Thanks. Dom, do you want to talk a little bit about the instructor training part of the evaluation?
Sure. The instructor training part is, like we kind of said earlier, it's a little bit more introductory focus. We're training new instructors and trying to kind of go over the 5 teaching skills in more depth, but without going into anything crazy. We're really just trying to train fundamentals. So a big part of that is the kind of 3-part session where we have an introduction where we set up the goal of the session in terms of the teaching skill that we're training. Much like an explanation you would give for a movement you might teach an actual beginner, right? And then we follow that up with a demonstration or a sample lesson of that teaching skill in action using a beginner lesson as a sample. So there's a bit of kind of like role changing going on that has to be clear. And then you come out of that, and the main meat of the session is the conclusion where you discuss what they saw and you kind of quiz them on their knowledge of that teaching skill. So you might ask them challenging questions about what they saw, whether they noticed it, whether they understand the decisions you made along the way. And you might also kind of ask them to then expand on that knowledge and maybe implement that teaching skill on their own. So if you were doing demonstrations, for example, you might show them a bunch of different demonstrations, quiz them on it, and then you might actually ask them to apply the demonstrations that you were doing in another situation themselves.
Yeah, thanks. And like you say, Dom, the conclusion is really important because that's where you'll make the links with what you've shown in the sample of lesson that you're putting in that sandwich of for your session. So the introduction, the sample of session, and the conclusion. And that sample of lesson, you really want to look at it being the perfect lesson. Like this clip of the lesson you'll give, it needs to be like the perfect lesson you would give to an actual student. So your level 1 in training, or your potential level 1, your future level 1 could look at it and get inspired by that sample of session and do the exact same thing, right? Then if it's a perfect sample of lesson, or you can use all of the part of this lesson to relate to all the pedagogic point you've tried to bring, right? To show light on, right? We'll go back at it. So really, what is a level 3 instructor? How do you see a level 3 instructor, Adam? How would you describe your level 3 instructor today?
Today?
Well, yeah, today, talking about the mass of the level 3 instructors out there.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to your first slide, and having a bank of experience, or I like to class it as experiences, definitely makes that instructor quite adaptable. So some of the points that you put on there were being able to teach or ride in different environments, different conditions, different varying levels of student, different times of day. So just being quite adaptable to anything that's thrown at them. And that can be equally said on the riding side. So expecting that, if conditions change, your riding can be slightly modified to adjust to the conditions. The big one here with, expectations as far as when somebody's taking the course, or taking the exam, and what they're expecting to get out of the exam. I always would just remind people that just take it as another piece of experience that you're gaining. It's quite rare that people are blasting through this exam first try. Most people these days are taking this exam multiple times to become successful in all three of these components here. So I think, I've been involved with this exam for a long time, and there's a very, very small handful of people that have been successful on everything on the very first try here.
Thanks. Yeah, so the level 3 are internationally recognized, and it's the minimum for sponsored visas as well. So it has quite of a big standing, right? The level 3 is required to become a CASI evaluator as well, and the level 3s are often our snow school trainers, so can wear big hats in this industry. So it reflects the level of dedication it takes to get through this certification.
Mm-hmm. I think too, it's, before you jump onto the level 4 here, it's the first time, if you're new to the level 3 exam, it's the first time it'll probably feel like a test. Level 1 and 2, you kind of have an ongoing evaluation, where the level 3, you don't have a lot of time to, have multiple chances at things. It's more, you show up, you do your lesson, and you're done. And same with the instructor training and the riding. There's a few more laps involved there, but it's definitely more of a exam vibe than you would be used to if you haven't been on this exam yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Dom, you wanted to add anything on the level 3 before we touch on the level 4 stuff?
No, I just saw in the chat a question about the riding exam, so I can answer that real quick. Basically, with the new exam format being 3 days compared to 2, the riding will have its own dedicated day from start to finish, whereas before we sometimes, but not always, would try to fit in, say, some pedagogy sessions in the morning of the second day. Now we will arrive only with riding on the mind for the scheduled day that is riding. So it'll be a little, in general, there will be a little bit more time, but some exams in the past, we've done like a full day of riding exam. So it's the same, but a little bit different. But on average, there'll be a little bit more time.
Good point. Thanks. We'll get back to the preparation part for the level 3 and level 4 at the end of touching on the level 4 content. Still people coming in. Right, so you might have noticed already that this year we're launching a new format for the level 4 course portion. The level 4 course will be a modular portion, so we'll cover it with 3 distinct modules per component, one for each component of the certification that is also evaluated. So each of these separate modules will allow you to get a more exhaustive training and more practice for each component, because it will allow us the trainers to get a little bit more in depth. Also, you have the flexibility to train and evaluate one component at the time. So you could say, let's say this year you could start the riding and come and test the riding at the exams, and next year you could focus on another component of your choice. You can also attend all of the module if you feel like doing it in one season, and with them being 3 days, it's gonna maybe allow you to schedule your thing a little bit better if you're working full-time in a snow school. So you don't have like to take a commitment of 5 days. You can like take without like that flexibility of just moving for 3 days might be helpful. But also it's pretty tiring when you do this course like 5 days in a row. So having them on separate module will allow for a better focus and like stay energized through the whole 3 days, really. And I think this is an important part. And if you're already in the process of the level 4, that could be also a good idea to just touch one of the modules, just go back and do the teaching, or just do the instructor training, and you can take these modules as many times as you'd like before going to the exams, or according to where you're at in the process. Dom, do you want to give us an example of what would look like a candidate ready to tackle the level 4 modular course portion? Like, how would you describe someone who's ready to go? And maybe it can be based on your personal experience or some of your peers that you've seen in the last few years succeed to this course.
Hey, so yeah, at least in my experience, when I went through the process a long time ago, I knew I was ready when I had my level 3, and my snow school director at the time was looking to me to lead training sessions and stuff, and I was asking for it as well, but they were trusting me with that. And even when I went internationally over to Perisher in Australia, I was kind of looked to as a more senior instructor, and people kind of looked to me. So I was kind of being asked for the information that I would get on the level 4 course before I even got there. It wasn't necessarily me driving myself towards that point. The other thing that I did back then is I took a year between passing my level 3 to just not worry about courses and exams, and I really just wanted to snowboard for myself. And through that year, that's when people were coming to me with questions and asking me to run sessions and stuff like that. So I think it's nice to have that outside perspective of other people kind of telling you that you're ready without forcing it, without kind of looking and seeking that out. That's a good sign that you're probably ready to go to the course. Other good signs that you're ready to go to the course is that you've got your level 3. You've maybe had it for a year or two. You find maybe you're reading through the reference material and you feel like you have a great understanding of what's going on in the reference guide. You probably won't have too many questions. We're not really reinventing the wheel on the level 4, but you should have a deep understanding of everything that's in the reference manual when you show up, so that we can have those discussions about the nuances of each skill or each kind of turn or whatever it might be, right? So you want to come in prepared is the other way I would put that.
Thanks. Maybe Adam, you want to weigh on this question a little bit? Like how
I think
you want to add on?
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, there's no real rush to go through the levels. You know, Dom was speaking about a year or two with your level 3. I mean, you can hang out as a level 3 as long as you want, and all you're going to do then is gain more level 3 experience and allow some of that material that you're using as a strong level 3 to really sink in and become consolidated and become kind of inside of you, rather than just scratching the surface of it and then trying to move forward and learn some new stuff. Where there's definitely a period where you just want to let yourself ride there for a little bit and let things happen and not rush to the next level, because there's going to be a ceiling at some point that you're going to hit your head on. So you might as well just kind of like ease that blow a little bit, rather than just moving up until you hit it, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, experience, like we cannot say that enough. The teaching experience, writing experience, that volume. Of course, like at the level 4, we're assessing you on the creative variation phases. So we're really looking for people that, to be at the creative variation, you need to have that great experience, because it for it to come naturally, you cannot fake that experience, right? Also, one thing I wanted to mention, we haven't talked about the Park 2. There is not a prerequisite for the level 4, but it's strongly recommended before attending the course. That sets you up pretty close to what we're asking in the level 4 course. Yeah, I think we covered it pretty much. Oh yeah, the differences. I wanted to touch on the differences for the instructor training between the level 3 and the level 4. I think it would be good if Adam, maybe you can talk about this a little bit. what are we expecting? Because it's often a question we get asked, like, so what's the difference between the instructor training component at the level 3 and what we're expecting at the level 4? Because there's quite a big gap in between these two components.
Yeah, for sure. There is quite a large stretch between the two. So on the level 3, we're taking some of the basic practical teaching skills and we're applying them to some quick ride material, some familiar terrain for a lot of new instructors. As you move into the level 4, it kind of jumps quite far ahead towards, you're training people now that have a lot of experience towards, it could be level 3 style riding, it could be level 4 style riding. So, you're basically going from beginner stuff to quite advanced stuff with quite a large gap in the middle, where that's where your experience is going to come in to fill that gap. If you start teaching sessions and you're running your sessions with maybe some level 2s, maybe some people who are training for their level 3, you're going to start to gain that experience and fill that gap between the 3 and 4. The material itself isn't quite, it's not that quite different than the level 3. We're just getting a little more detailed into some of the smaller pieces of the puzzle that make this stuff happen. So rather than teaching about, a giant topic such as communication and lesson structure, for say, we're going to start to speak a little bit more about maybe specific communication styles, and we can talk about that for a whole entire session's worth rather than just scratching the surface of it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, good points. Dom, do you have anything to add on it, or we're good to move to the next slide?
No, I'm okay.
I'm gonna touch on the course guide. All right, so at the level 4 exams, we also teach the same 3 components: teaching, writing, and instructor training. And I don't know if you had the time to look at the new course guide from this season. As we have 3 modules, we've separated it for those who are familiar with it. It used to be like one big course guide with all of the 3 things for the whole course. Obviously, now it's separated for 3 modules. So each of these modules will have the agenda that has changed quite a lot, and also the exam agenda, which is standard because it's valid for all of these 3 components. And you can find in this course guide the marking system and the assessment part for each of the components. So for instance, in that instructor training evaluation, we just talked about it a little bit, so I'll start with this one. So the candidates are asked to present an advanced instructor training session, 60 minutes in duration, usually pretty much close to that 60 minutes, and it's geared toward experienced snowboard instructor. And there are pre-assigned in 2 portions to build the session, so teaching skills and a writing skill. So we're pre-assigning you these two portions the day before. So you'll get an email from myself with these 2 things that you can start building a session on and present at the exams. And the sessions are expected to be addressed and develop each of the 2 assigned topics. For all of our level 4 component, we work with an overall average mark. So 1 to 5 out of 10 is below the standards, and 6 to 10 out of 10 meets the standard. So that's for the instructor. And I won't go in detail on all of the criteria and stuff because you can also read it, access these course guide. They're accessible through your member profile on the CASI website in the section resources, course resources. For the teaching component, Dom, do you want to talk a little bit about the teaching component, the marking criteria for this one? How do we guide these evaluation mostly when we're at the exams?
Yeah, so the teaching portion of the exam the information that you'll know kind of coming into the day is that you'll be given a schedule and you'll know who you're teaching, and then and kind of what order you'll be teaching in, and then you will basically be expected to teach that group and improve their skills in the moment. So you'll be assigned a piece of terrain, you'll be dropped off somewhere, and then that will be where you'll teach from for an hour. With a bit of flexibility in what you can choose to teach, which is awesome. But then it does need to kind of reflect on maybe what the group needs, or maybe what the conditions are calling for, or what the terrain in front of you is. Like it shouldn't just be a canned lesson that you come with pre-prepared and has no bearing on what you see in front of you, kind of thing. So there is some level of preparation you can do, but we kind of want you to be able to show up and teach a lesson as if it was just any other day at your normal job, right? Like you're given a lesson, you don't really know what you're getting into, and you go from there.
Yeah, and you to insist on that point, like you don't know where you're starting. Over the years, there have been some changes on this, but like this is what we're doing. Where the evaluators will lead you to your starting point, and your starting point can be really anywhere on the mountain. So that's one thing important to remember when you're practicing for this and when you're getting ready for teaching at the exams. But so yeah, and anywhere really in the mountain, it can be, you can be dropped in the middle of the woods, right, or the middle of glades. Yes. Adam, I'll get you talking about the writing assessment marking criteria.
Yeah, for sure. So same sort of scale. You're marked out of basically 1 to 10, 6 being a pass. And in order to be successful, you have to score at least an average of 6 on each of these tasks. You guys can read them there. I'm not going to read each of these off individually. You guys can see those. But basically with the riding, there's 2 runs per task. And, you know, if you get a 5 on your first run, a 7 on your next run, kind of averages out to a 6. There is a little bit of leeway on the evaluation side, where if you're scoring quite high in everything, in one task you're barely scraping the line, there could be a conversation about whether, you know, it was just a bit of a tactical error or whatnot, and it could be a success even though you've just squeaked below that 6. So, you know, it is kind of a black and white kind of teaching or writing scenario, but it's also, there is a little bit of humanity in there as well. The other comment I get a lot, and I'm sure Jen and Dom, you both heard this about the writing evaluation, is a lot of people come into the exam, they always have the comment that, well, I didn't get a lot of feedback, and that's kind of put in there organically on purpose, because really, again, it's an exam, so we're basically marking in kind of a descriptive or an evaluative way. We're putting the prescriptive side of things to you as your own training to pursue. So a good example would be if we're taking notes and we're observing what's happening. There could be a note on there that says maybe it says no edge grip or something, or no loading and deflection, and that's just merely an observation. And part of your training is to go back and train towards that, figure out how you're going to make that happen in your own way. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so if you want to see more, read more on these course guides, just as I said, just access them. They're really detailed in your member profile, and just reach out if there's anything that's not necessarily clear. And also remember that if you're attending a module, you'll be covering all of these aspects during the module. That's why they're for. What is
yeah. Jen, I got one more thing to add just quickly.
Oh, yeah.
one thing that's different, particularly on the level 4 exam, with all of it, and I think maybe increasingly we might expect to see this a little bit more on level 3 as well, is that there will be 2 evaluators present and marking every task, every teach, every session. So that's definitely different for the level 4. And don't be surprised if that were to happen on your level 3 exam. It just helps us be more impartial and avoid any question of bias or anything. It helps us be more certain that the standard is being upheld to the highest standard that we can.
Well, and especially making sure that we're not forgetting anything, that we're more pairs of highs is always more efficient, right? And then we can discuss and compare and make sure we get on the same page. We also use a marking scale that's accessible when you're doing the course. You have access to the evaluator's marking scale. If there's any doubts to have or any discussions to have, we refer to that piece, that marking scales, and then we can make sure we're on the same page for the marks. So we take quite a lot of time to reflect, to give our final marks. Yeah. For our level 4 instructor, what is our level 4 instructor? How would you describe it? How would you describe it, Dom? Like how it looks like you're the person that has succeed. Don't describe you, but describe like maybe someone who, like how you see it, someone who succeeded last season. So it's the highest level of the CASI certification.
Yeah. What I think of when I think of a level 4 CASI instructor is I think of someone who is adaptable to any lesson that might walk through a snow school's door. Now that can range from beginner lessons all the way through the progression, intermediate, novice, advanced, expert. Like I might see this person teaching on the bunny slope one day, and then I might see them teaching, at the top of a double black or triple black chute the next day. Another thing that I think of when I see these people, think of a level 4, is that they have a deep knowledge of snowboarding and a deep understanding of, associated things to what they're teaching. So they will know some stuff about biomechanics. They will know some stuff about physics. They will know some stuff about even a little bit about like kind of coaching and mental preparation and stuff like that, psychology, that kind of thing. They will have all these, maybe not all of them always, but they will have a breadth of knowledge that is deeper than just what is on the courses. And they're going to bring that knowledge to their lessons and to their sessions. And that's the other thing I think of when I think of a level 4 is I think of someone wearing the CASI evaluating jacket, or someone training a GAP program or something like that, who is not only passing on their passion for snowboarding by teaching lessons, but also passing on their passion for teaching. Being a teacher is something that we should all enjoy. We're not here just for snowboarding. We're actually here as well at that level. We enjoy teaching as well. So those are the things I think of when I think of a level 4.
Yeah, well-rounded instructors and writers, creative, and people that they shine, right? I like to say that. I see just a quick question in the chat there. Why not provide the example of an excellent feedback, and later on it would really benefit the candidate if they knew what to keep and what to improve? So the exams is a different way of receiving the feedback than when you take the module. When you take the training module, you'll get in-depth feedback because you'll spend the 3-day working on that component itself, and you'll have like a lot of discussions. And at this level, the feedback also must come from yourself, right? If you don't know where you're at, if you don't understand that conversation of the feedback, it's probably because you need more training to understand it. So at the exams, we run on a tight schedule, and we want to make sure that we have, sometimes like there's conditions, there's traffic, there's, there's a lot of people, and it's like a lot of stress also. It might not seem like that, but it's a lot of pressure and stress for the evaluators to deal with, as we want it to run as smoothly as possible. So at the exams, we have the time to take marks, but when you go down one after the other, we don't have the time to write all in-depth feedback, and you got that feedback already in the module, at the module. So if you retake the module, we'll give you the feedback again. And if you take the exam, we're giving you a mark. We can explain a little bit, but the mark that you should expect at the level 4 for the feedback, it's brief. And I think like we know each other, we know you've been through the process, and we don't necessarily need to envelope all of our feedback when we're giving them to you. It's more like, I think you should take it more as a coaching feedback when you get to the level 4. I don't know if Adam or Dom want to weigh in on this one, or if you think it's pretty clear what I just said. Okay, I'm just reading through the comments in the chat.
Yeah,
here.
Jen, I can kind of back you up on that. I agree that, like you said, the feedback on the exam is just there as a descriptor of what we saw. And it takes us at that level able to take that description and then work out a plan for yourself moving forward. And then and like you say, it's not even necessarily about like the time and stuff. We could take the time, but most people want their feedback right there and then. And something that we didn't talk about that comes across informally is there will often be a discussion or an opportunity to talk to every single one of your evaluators, either there in the moment or later via message or email or video chat or whatever. And almost every evaluator there is going to be more than willing to give the time to maybe help you with that plan that you're supposed to make with that descriptive feedback. So it's an ongoing process. It doesn't end just on the day there. You get your written feedback and it's over. That's not it. You get your written feedback, and then it's up to you to reach out to your mentors and to the event evaluators and other things in a kind and respectful way, obviously, because you're asking for something of them, to then help develop that further if there's any clarification needed or if you need any further aid. And then officially we have the course modules, which you can go back to get more in-depth feedback, more in-depth practice in front of those people if you don't have access to them easily at your resort.
Thanks, Tom. And I think like it's important, like we're humans and we're happy to help and we're happy to explain whatever you haven't understand. But like I say, like I want to insist on this, like at this level, it's important to ask yourself, like if we have given you an explanation of what you should be working on already, if really like you don't understand it, maybe there's some ways you need to work on, and like to go and review your CASI reference guide, to go and like get some analysis with some people like at your resorts, coaching analysis. I mean, you might need to understand why you don't understand. If you don't understand, it's probably because you don't feel it, right? That's often what I'm saying. Like if I'm reading through your comments here, Mike. In my experience, it has ended on the day. It would be great if it was just written down in the first place. It would be great, a great example of how to give written feedback for the people running courses. So I'm not too sure what you are referring to, if it's on the module or at the exams, but I'm not going to re-explain what I just said about the exam feedback. If you want to talk about it a little bit more in depth, I invite you to just call me or write me an email, and I'll be happy to go deeper on this. We'll move on to the next slide, unless Adam and Dom, you had some stuff to add in there. I think we covered it pretty much. The next slide, level 3 in goals development and training. So how to prepare you for your next course and exam. So I don't think we can say it more. We've been telling it through the whole session, and you've probably heard it with your CASI trainers. So teach, teach, teach. We could not repeat this more. Just teach. a great experience of teaching. Ride for fun and don't always train the tasks. Dedicate time to train, but also don't forget to snowboard for fun and why you have started to do this at the first place. I think that's important to remember that. When training, also have a clear goal and focus. It's easier to improve if you fix clearer goals, although goals can vary at times and they also can transform. And it is important to regularly reassess your own goals according to what's possible now, what's possible today, but what's possible tomorrow, and what's accessible for you and what's realistic according to your life, your job, your family duty, your friends. You know, like you need to constantly reassess your goals in order to be able to meet them. You also need to know your material very well. As we mentioned, just prepare yourself, read, study, research, verify, discuss with peers and mentors, reach out to mentors and CASI senior evaluators, practice lesson and session in the exam format with your peers, write session. That could go a long way. It depends on the people, but I know for a lot of us that went through the process, we write a bunch of sessions. Like I have a binders of session, like many binders of sessions that I wrote to get to the point where I built my own library, and this own library was big enough so I could just access from it, right? I can create a session on the go, on the spot, with the flow of the day, with the people in front of me. So this is a nice tool for you, either for the teaching component or for the instructor training component. Get feedback on all of the 3 components from evaluators. So reach out, or also from your peers when you're training with. So reach out to us, and if you don't have anyone to train with, you can reach out to the CASI technical team member, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you, or at least to direct you to someone, to the right resources, or to someone in your area to train. Maybe I'll let you guys talk a little bit about the tips, the pro tips, and you can add some stuff on there. Adam, do you want to talk about the tips for development and training at this level?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on here. I think the biggest thing that I see that's missing is just kind of being honest with yourself, you know, and I've said this a lot if you rode with me or train with me, but, you know, from a riding perspective, you know, just be honest. If something didn't feel right, like you got chucked out of your line, or, you know, you didn't have a smooth run through a certain piece of terrain or whatever it might be, didn't land a trick clean, just acknowledge that and try to figure out how you can gain some consistency in this area. And then I think the other side of it is, you know, kind of congratulate yourself a little bit when you did have a good run or something did go well, because then you can figure out kind of what made it all come together and hopefully recreate that enough times that it becomes a bit of a automatic response. It's definitely something that I'm constantly hearing from the peers that I work with all the time, like, oh, that run felt terrible. It's like, well, it probably wasn't the best run. You know, it's just that level of honesty. And I think that goes across the board, not just for riding, but for teaching as well. You know, if you're honest with yourself in the way that, you know, the lesson is progressing, as it's progressing, then you can make those changes. Like, they're not understanding what I'm saying, or I kind of picked the wrong piece of terrain to do this. Well, then that's your opportunity then and now to make that adjustment, rather than just kind of sticking to the course of it all.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of part also, it links up a little bit to reassessing your goals constantly, right? To kind of do a nice introspection with yourself when you're training.
For sure. And just think of the goals as not, I want to get my level 3 or my level 4. You have to have smaller, more justifiable, achievable pieces in there, rather than this broad scope. And really those mini goals within the development or the training towards getting the certification is those are the moments to really feel good and celebrate, when you're making good strides and changes. The result, the pass or fail, it is what it is, as far as those changes happening, right? Somebody who's quite successful in either of these courses, chances are they're not banking on their very best run of their life to make it happen. They've made small changes, they've achieved small goals within their training, and that formula takes them there, maybe not on their best day of riding. So I see quite a few people on the level 3 and 4. They're trying to train to the standard, where that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for things if things are going to happen. So if you want to train to pass, you kind of need to just train these small goals to be almost above the line of certification there. So if I want to lift 100 pounds, I might as well train to lift 120 pounds. So the 100-pound lift will be easy.
Yeah. It's like showing an ice rain day and never read an ice rain day before. Tips, also general fitness. We haven't really talked about it, but obviously it's a no-brainer, right? That it helps a lot for riding and also for injury prevention. So make sure you consider this as being part of your goals, and whatever you're doing in order to reach like a certain level of fitness that's going to help you reach these goals, it's important. So there's tons of resources out there, or people that can help you achieve that as well. And training with the right people, so coach, friends. For you might learn different things from different trainers, but you maybe some trainers will help you get the best out of yourself better. I don't know if I express myself right, but you want to, like, some people will help you shine a little bit. Maybe you'll respond a little bit better to their training. So I think it's good to being part of the next point, which is honing your development and your training, like choosing the people that you feel it are going to really help you to progress, because you're responsible for, and you should be accountable for yourself and for that training. So that's pretty much it on it. Dom and Adam, do you have anything you want to add on these points?
My only tip to add would be that you want to have a bit of a schedule, but you need to have some flexibility in that. But, like put a timeline together as to what goals you're going to try to achieve on what time, but then realize that those timelines may need to adjust. But I think the important part of that process of making that timeline is being honest with yourself about actually how much time you have to train. A lot of people think they have a lot more time to train than they actually do. When you sit down and think about how many days a week you work and how many backcountry trips you want to do, and those 3 weeks that you're going to go to some other resort, or you're going to go to a wedding down in Mexico or something, by the time you actually add all those things up, a lot of people, especially at the level 4, because you're career instructors, will tend to have a lot fewer days than you would think to actually train. So just going through the process of creating a timeline will show you that, and it will highlight the need for maybe making some sacrifices or making some adjustments, or even just highlighting the fact that when you do go out and train, you need to make that quality training without distractions. You got to kind of make that day worthwhile. And I think that's really important, and something that people tend to underestimate.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. A lot of that stuff can happen off snow as well, like the amount of insight I've got from reading books, or just having conversations with people off of the snow, or just kind of being alone with my own thoughts. Just those kind of things help set things a little bit more straight without the distraction of being kind of on the snow all the time as well, right? So there's a lot of discipline involved with getting to these higher levels, and a lot of that discipline starts off snow as well.
Yeah, and especially like when you attended a module, for example, module and exam maybe, or just a module, and during the summer, times off, some step back from the things, like that's it's quite often when like bubble lights are popping, right? You're making links.
Yeah. I just saw a question pop up in the chat from Pete here about just how many trainers will be on the modules. I mean, my first thought is if you've been involved with any level 4 program, whether it's a course or an exam or, a prep day or whatever, there always tends to be quite a few red jackets around. They'll be black now, but there's usually an abundance of people around, whether they're with you for the full time or whether they're floaters, right? So do you have an official answer for these modules? Is it 1-to-5 ratio there, Jen?
Yeah, it's 2 per group of 6 people attending the module. And for the exam, it's 2 for 5.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Pete.
Good question. We're pretty much done, but there's resources, and I'll let Adam introduce it because he's the one who brought it up. And this is a podcast that I think like a bunch of us have been listening to, Huberman podcast a lot. We wanted to point out some resources that you can maybe listen to help you develop on these things toward these goals. And Adam, do you want to introduce this one? Like just do a little brief of.
Well, yeah, for sure.
So not too long, like just a short brief.
yeah, for sure. I mean, every few weeks I listen to a podcast or two. I'm not religious about this stuff or anything, but I listened to this one the other day on a car ride, and it was interesting because as he's speaking about setting and achieving goals, there's a lot of kind of science behind how your brain is goal orientated and stuff, but there's also some little tips and tricks in there within this podcast. I don't even think I finished it, but it's quite general to sport and all tasks, I guess, in life. And I just found it quite interesting, especially because I knew that this virtual member session was coming out, and I thought that a lot of it was kind of singing the right song for a lot of the folks that are trying to achieve the level 3 and 4 here. So yeah, here it is. And if you haven't checked out this podcast, there's a lot, and they're quite long, but there's a lot of really good resource material in there that it's not a Bible to improve yourself or whatever, but for me it just always sparks some little neat ideas for my own training or the way I might explain something or understand something, right?
That's it for today. Does anyone has any question? You can throw them in the chat, or at this point you can, maybe, there's too many people to raise your hand. I won't be able to. But yeah, if you have any questions, that's a good moment to ask them in the chat, or if the questions pop up later, just reach out to us. Okay. Which of the 3 modules will you give the best introduction to the general idea of the level 4 content if you had to pick one? Well, I guess that depends where you come from. That depends where you are and what's your background. I would say, like, if I answer like a very personal question, for me, I would have started with the writing, because I feel that's the first thing that would have come to mind for me. I would just go and do the writing, get the stuff, train for it, and while training for it, also thinking about the other components. But that's just me. Maybe Adam and Dom have another answer for this one.
Yeah, for me, like when this question first popped up, I kind of thought the teaching, because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a good level of writing, but then you also get some of the background information about some of the feedback you're getting as well. And then for me, like the best part about the level 4 course itself is like, yeah, you're going to get a lot of feedback from the Cassie folk, but you're also going to get a lot of feedback and a lot of things from your peers on course. And for me, that's what keeps me involved in this level 4 course. Every time I go there, I learn something from some of the candidates, more than something, like a lot of stuff. So that would just give me the best perspective because, the instructor training stuff, you have to have a pretty good teaching base. You have to be able to teach a pretty good high-end lesson for that stuff to even matter. So for me, I guess the teaching would cover the best of both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question. In the level 3 guide, it says attend training session with a current CASI level 3 instructor and or evaluator to get feedback on your writing ability in relation to the tech standard. What is some examples of these training session? Would it be member session, any other tangible? So yes, we do offer some level 3 and level 4 prep sessions. So you could attend one of these. You just have to look on the member session section on the website and look at what's offered. And also maybe it could be through your snow school as well, run by CASI people who run prep session. I know like in some mostly bigger snow school, there's some training session focused on CASI courses, prep courses. So that could be these. You could also reach out to an evaluator or someone, a senior evaluator, experienced evaluator who's willing to give you a session. Also, or a private lesson, at a snow school, of course. Listen to the Uberman Gold podcast last week. It was good stuff. Also, I haven't quite finished it. Okay, thanks, Mike. Sorry. YouTube, yes. Thanks for getting all right. Good. Our French session will be next week on October 10th. I don't know which day it is. I think it's a Tuesday as well, but October the 10th. Which park exam move into a multiple evaluator format in the future? Which
park exams? So I'm not sure what park exams you're speaking of there, but like the park 1 or 2 course kind of have the exam built into them, but the park exam is built into the level 4 that has multiple evaluators. So I just don't understand the question there anyways.
Yeah. Does being part of a ski school help influence in obtaining level 3 and 4?
Yes.
Level 3 and 4 can be attained without, whoops, sorry, I lost the question, without being a full-time instructor. Well, it definitely helps, and that's what we're expecting, as we talked about. If I don't know if you've seen like the beginning of the session there, but our evaluation system or certification system is based on the Canadian Snow School system, where we take different students each day and work for these snow school programs, and that's the greatest way to have a wide range of clients, of students.
Yeah, and be fully immersed in it. I feel like the downfall I see a lot with people on the level 3, especially, and it can be on the lower levels as well, but the level 4, not so much, because these people don't occur that much. But if you're not working in a school, most people that are presenting on this course, they screw up the basic things, like where to stop on the run, how many times to stop on the run, just those things that you get programmed into by being fully involved with teaching all the time, and then the lessons just don't really happen very organically. So
another question from Harry here. Yeah, I find we need a bit more level 3 prep member session, general member session aren't fit. Well, we try to offer these member session. Also, our staff, our level 3 evaluators and our level 4 evaluators are super busy during the season as well. So there's a limited number of sessions we can offer. But stay tuned, look at the website and for the session. When you register for a session, it's really important that you click on the flipping card. When you click on the registration for a member session, you can, or a course, you can flip the card and it has a note there and it shows the theme of the session. So whether it's freestyle, all mountain terrain, all mountain free ride, level 3 prep session, level 4 prep session, these are written there. So be sure that to look at these and also at the language, because if it's written French, it's going to be a French session. So you need to speak French to attend this session. Yeah, just a side note, it's important. Slightly off topic, but I just want to confirm this. Would I have to sit the level 2 exam to change over to the CASI system? I'm already a level 2 at PSI, and I'm planning on getting my level 3 CASI this season. You would need to send me your application of international course recognition, and we'll give you an entry point in the CASI system. So you can find this information on our website in the international section. All right, I think that's it. Any other question? In regards to the level 4, I've noticed incredible success with our friends in the CSIA with their academy. Is there any thought of making some kind of program outside of the course module to assist in people training towards the level 4 and 3 certification? No, at this point, we think that our model is working really well with these modules. It's going to provide you with a lot more flexibility as well. I mean, it's not we can never say no. There's always a discussion that could happen, but thanks for bringing it in. I'll bring it to the tech meetings, and this is some things we can always discuss further. But at this point, we're moving with this new model for at least a little while.
For sure. And I've had this conversation with a lot of snow school directors, and, you know, the academy is definitely an interesting model. But the thing that I've heard from a lot of directors that they don't like is that it does require a lot of time away from the school for their instructors to participate in this academy. It's definitely not a 5-day course. There's a lot of things going on to make that happen. And it's one of those things where it's definitely producing a lot more level 4s. I don't think that's something that we really need to do. I don't think that quantity over quality is a good idea at this point.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Well, I think that's it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Next session, stay tuned for next analysis and improvement session on November 7th. Again, next week, the French one on level 3 and 4, same as this one, same content, but just in French. So if you want to work on your French, that would be the time. Have a good evening, everyone.
I was going to say the last thing to say is this will come out to watch if someone missed it and they wanted to attend, but they didn't. So spread the word.
It would be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Dom. I think.
Thank you.
Very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Do you want to stay on, or are you good?
That's good.
Yeah. It's a big day of CASI stuff anyway, so.